Hello tipsters and tricksters, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another vintage tips and tricks video. You guys asked for it, so let's talk about Emily in Paris.
What have you got if you haven't got love?
So I'm gonna come clean straight off the bat. I hated this show. The main characters don't seem to be acting very well, or else they've been told to kind of act in that wooden plastic kind of way that just really didn't appeal to me. I just don't think the show is for me. I know some people really liked it and that's fine. Some people found it kind of very fun and I guess it's a bit of a bubblegum show. As a show in terms of the way it was produced and acted, and for me the script was just, it made no sense. The whole premise didn't make any sense. There were so many plot holes and contradictions and it just drove me absolutely insane. But that aside, what we're here to talk about today is the French factor in the show. Did Emily in Paris get the experience of being an expat in Paris right? As someone who has lived in Paris and been in Emily's shoes, I thought it would be interesting to address some of the cliches that appear in this show and let you know whether Emily's experiences were ones that I had as well. So let's get started. The number one thing that I think immediately becomes clear when the show starts is because Emily doesn't speak French, she doesn't correctly know how to address French people and approach them to start a conversation.
First, let me apologize for speaking English. I did Rosetta Stone on the plane, but it hasn't kicked in yet.
The result is that people are really quite rude to her. And I would have to say that yes, this is an experience that I had. I came to France on a whim. I had met Val and I decided to move overseas instead of to an English-speaking country to a French-speaking country with only 6 months notice. So like Emily, I took some audiobook courses for French, but they really only told me how to ask for like the tourism office and ask for a coffee at a cafe and really basic stuff. So it wasn't much help when I actually wanted to have a conversation with someone, or if I found myself in a situation where I needed a different kind of vocabulary set than what I had been taught from the very basic stuff in the book. Even though I listened to 3 entire audiobooks, like 3 different levels, I was still an absolute beginner. And the biggest thing that you need to learn in France is to say bonjour whenever you speak to anybody. If you just get that into your head that before you talk to anybody, say bonjour. If you know them, if you don't know them, if they work in a shop, if they're a stranger on the street, just say bonjour. After that, they will help you. It says 2 things. You're making an effort to speak their language, even if that's the only word that you know. Secondly, it's just polite. I mean, realistically, it should be like that in every country. The difference is that if someone walked up to me in the UK or Australia and didn't say hello and asked me for directions, I'd probably think they were really rude, but I wouldn't say anything or do anything about it. The French aren't like that. They're gonna tell you that you're being rude and they're probably gonna go bonjour in your face. And fair enough. Why should they help you? In fact, sometimes they just won't help you if you don't say bonjour first. They just kind of act like you're not there. And, you know, if you're rude, they're gonna be rude back. Fair enough. One moment in the show that actually made me laugh was when Emily went into the boulangerie, the bakery, and started ordering. I think she ordered a pain au chocolat.
Mademoiselle, bonjour. Une pain au chocolat. Un pain au chocolat.
Now, I didn't really read this moment as coming off rude. I think the woman was just trying to correct her. And I'd have to say that in France, one of the best ways to learn French is to submerge yourself in the culture and have people correct you as you go. It's helpful. That's how you learn. So I know some people thought that this lady was being rude, but honestly, in Paris, people switch really quickly into English when they hear your accent, even if you're trying to speak French. Like, I really struggled to learn French when I lived in Paris because everybody wanted to speak English with me, because I made the effort to speak French and then they went, oh, this is an opportunity for me to practice my English. And so people would refuse to speak French with me. But if you make the effort to initially engage in the French language, people will be quite accommodating. Emily walked into the bakery and she did not say bonjour, first of all. And then the woman tried to speak French to her and Emily ignored her. Instead of saying, I'm sorry, I don't understand, just learn the phrase, je ne comprends pas. It's not difficult. I don't understand. Or parlez-vous anglais? Like, make the effort to just communicate the fact that you don't speak French. Like, that's 2 phrases. She didn't even bother to learn that. When people speak French to her and she doesn't understand, she just ignores them and waits for them to speak English. Sorry, Emily, no. But I did find almost every single time I went into a bakery, if I ordered something that I wasn't familiar with, because I would try to practice ordering the different names of things. So instead of just saying like, I want some bread, I would say like, I want a traditional, or I want a baguette, or I would say the different names. And they all have different masculine or feminine identities. So not the right word, but you know what I mean. It's la or le or un or une. And I would often get it wrong. And the boulangerie was one of the only places in the kind of public setting of Paris where people would continue to speak French to me and not switch to English. And they would always without fail correct me as to whether it was un or une. So yes, that was correct as far as the show is concerned. Something that crops up in like every single freaking episode of this show, because I watched the entire season just to make this video so that I wasn't basing it on the first episode. It was difficult, guys. But something that crops up in every episode is men are constantly hitting on Emily. Now, okay, I would say yes, that is correct insofar as French men, they just like to pay attention to the ladies. Young or old, French men are just all about charming the ladies. The thing that the show has wrong, however, is that they're forever touching Emily. Now, one of the biggest cultural differences I've found in France is that French people are not touchy-feely. As an Aussie, we hug everybody. Not in a workplace setting, but in a friends setting, we hug everyone. I still have an awkward encounter every time I see Val's parents, because I hug them because that's my natural like mode of affection as an Aussie. And for French people, it's like, whoa, your whole body is pressed up against me. Like, that's weird for them. The kiss on the cheek, when you think about it, they don't kiss your cheek, it's actually cheek to cheek. A lot of people have the misconception that you actually kiss someone's cheek. No, it's cheek to cheek. Like, sometimes older family members, like grandmas and grandpas, will give you a big smacker on the cheek, like they do in every culture. But in general, it's cheek to cheek is the polite thing to do. No one's actually kissing anyone. It's a mwah, mwah kind of thing. They're actually, in comparison to like my experiences in America and the UK and Australia, quite standoffish and respectful of personal boundaries. So the idea that the guy who showed Emily into her apartment, like the building manager, that he touched her shoulder and asked her out for dinner, just no. And also in my experience, rather than just being super sleazy like they were in the show, French men hit on you a lot. But one of the differences is that, unlike my experiences in particularly Australia, where men are very sleazy and just go straight in for the kill in a way that you're just like, you never stood a chance because you're being super creepy and weird, French men are very charming and are good at conversation. So you might find a strange French man talking to you, but he's not just gonna go straight up for the like, do you wanna have sex or do you wanna have dinner? He's gonna try and charm you with conversation and compliments. So yeah, the idea that strange people that Emily doesn't know keep touching her body is just, in my experience, just not something that happens in France. There was a moment in the show where Emily's shower is not working and she gets the plumber over, and he doesn't have like any of the tools that he needs. He sits around and has a coffee, he chats for ages, and then at the end he says, oh no, I can't actually fix anything. I'll let you know when the part comes in, and then she basically doesn't see him again for ages.
No.
What do you mean, no?
Impossible.
But why impossible?
That the show has spot on. Our apartment in Paris had a perfectly good kitchen. It was really pretty, actually. And then one day, someone came in to fix the tiles. I don't know why they needed fixing, but we were told they needed replacing, so they ripped them off the wall. And I mean, just chiseled them off, left a broken tile and a hole in the wall. It just looked like shit. They left all the dust and the dirt everywhere. And then they disappeared. And we asked the property manager, like, what is going on? And he said, oh, the guy that was working on it no longer works there, so they're gonna send someone else out to do it. And we're like, oh, okay. We lived there for 8 more months and no one came, and we kept asking like every week, is someone gonna fix our kitchen? Because now our kitchen has like a whole section that's not usable. And we lived in a teeny weeny apartment. Like, our kitchen bench was only like 2 meters long and like a third of it was not usable. No one ever came to fix it. So in my experience, yes, that is definitely the way maintenance works in Paris. There are numerous points in the show where Emily bumps into people on the street, complete strangers, and very quickly chats with them and befriends them.
Emily. Camille. Enchantée.
Now, I have seen someone's video, I've forgotten her name, but she has a fantastic channel about living in Paris and has done her own video about Emily in Paris, and I would highly recommend it, so do go and check her out. But she was saying this happened to her quite a lot in Paris, and that's how she's made her close friends. For me, and I know many other expats who've also lived in Paris who are my friends, have had the same experience. It is so hard to meet true Parisians and befriend them. A lot of Parisians are still friends with the people that they went to not just school with, but kindergarten with. Like, French people seem to have lifelong friends, and I think particularly Parisians, from what I understand and what I've been told. And it just takes a really long time for them to be interested and open enough towards you to let you into their circle, to the point that I got asked several times by people who were Parisians all their life. They asked me to meet them at a cafe to get to know each other better and to have a drink, and every single time I got stood up. They told me they weren't coming like 10 minutes after they were supposed to be there, and I had traveled from outside of Paris where I was living in, so a lot of the time I had traveled between 30 and 60 minutes to meet them, and they would dump me at the last minute, and they always said they got a better offer. They didn't say it in those words, but they were like, oh, I decided to hang out with my friend today, or I decided to see my family today. Like, it was always, I decided to do something else. It was never a, you know, I had an emergency or I got called into work. It was always, I got a better offer. And I told this to a few people and they were like, yeah, you're not a priority yet. Their friends are their priority. So that can be pretty hard and pretty brutal about Paris. So a lot of the time in the first couple of years, you make friends with expats, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't keep trying. Eventually you will meet people, but don't be discouraged if you're in Paris and you're really struggling to make friends. It can take some time. One of the most controversial things about the show that I've seen in terms of reviews and the conversation that's being had a lot on social media about it is that the show portrays French people as being completely promiscuous and everyone's having affairs and they all basically know about it and are okay with it. This is something my mum said to me, that French people have affairs and it's okay, you know, like as long as it's not kind of rubbed in their face. Wives just accept that husbands have mistresses and wives also have, you know, men on the side and stuff, and that culturally it's just accepted, but you don't really talk about it. And my mum did actually say to me when I met Val that I might have to accept the fact that he's probably going to cheat on me and that that's just a cultural thing. I love her to death, but she knows absolutely nothing about French culture, and she was very, very wrong about that. I don't know where this cliche came from. Val did tell me that he read an article a couple of years ago that said that French people statistically had more affairs than people in other countries. Not by a whole lot, but they won the race. However, I have a lot of girlfriends with French partners, and I've spoken to Val's parents, I've spoken to Val's friends, I've spoken to people online, I've asked some of you guys who are French. I have never met a French person who is okay with their partner or boyfriend or significant other cheating on them. Period. People cheat everywhere, guys, and I don't think there is a country anywhere where people are okay with the fact that their partner is going behind their back and sleeping with someone else. Why would the French be okay with that? So no, don't expect to come to France and have multiple partners and have them all want to sit down to dinner together, or have one of them tell the other that they approve, or if you accidentally let it slip that you're sleeping with someone else that they're going to be like, it's okay, that happens, you know, we're all humans. No, they're probably going to be pissed and really hurt. So basically just treat that aspect of life like you would in your home country. When Emily first gets to Paris, she is taken into her apartment and the estate agent or property manager says to her, here is your chambre de bonne.
Et voilà, your magnificent chambre de bonne.
Chambre de what now?
Now, a chambre de bonne is an apartment that is at the top of old French buildings, and it's where the maid lived when the building was owned by one whole family as opposed to being split into apartments. They are very tiny and small, basically just room for a bed, and the bathroom is in a separate area. Maybe they've been fitted with a kitchen, but in general, it's basically just a very tiny bedroom. We're talking really, really, really tiny. Emily's apartment is probably twice the size of the apartment that Val and I lived in, and we lived outside of Paris. Not a long way, albeit, probably in the first suburb outside of Paris, but we didn't live in Paris because if we had lived in Paris, we would not have been able to afford to get anything bigger, basically, than a chambre de bonne. So for Emily to be told that that's what she's living in, like, I don't know why the show did that. Like, why don't they just say, here's your tiny apartment? Like, why say it's something that it's not? Because it was not. It wasn't on the top floor for a start. It wasn't a studio. It was a 1-bedroom and it was big. It was a nice big apartment. So I don't know why the show insisted on acting like it was a tiny, tiny place. I mean, Emily has a pretty decent job. She just got a big promotion. She's living in a very nice area of the city. Why would she not have a nice apartment? Why would they A, say that she's gonna live in this tiny, tiny room, and B, say it was that when it very clearly wasn't? It just makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. So that they had very wrong. However, it is true that when you move to Paris and you are even working full time, it is very hard to get an affordable, decent sized apartment. Parisian apartments are very, very small. We Airbnb'd it a lot when we actually lived in Paris, and for 900 to 1,000 euros a month, we lived in studios. Sometimes the studios had like a bed in a mezzanine section so that the lounge room was underneath and the bed was above. Like, that's how small they were. A lot of them didn't have a proper kitchen. They had like a little convection oven or a 2-burner plug-in stove, like just the little teeny ones. And some of them had the bathroom out in the hall. That's the reality of Paris, but it was not Emily's reality. So they kind of half had that right. What they said was correct, what they showed was completely wrong. The last subject I want to touch on in relation to the show and kind of busting myths about moving to Paris is going everywhere in an Uber. Multiple times throughout the show, Emily is shown getting out of Ubers. I never see her on the metro, and she gets about everywhere by either Ubering or walking. We're just gonna cut walking out of the equation because she goes everywhere in stilettos, and I actually quite like the fashion in the show. I know everybody hated it, but I actually liked how quirky and different she was. I am all about like making style your own and doing your own thing. And although I personally wouldn't dress the way Emily dresses, I love that that aspect of her character was really kind of represented in the way that she dressed. She was kind of very eccentric and out there and confident, as was her style. So I actually kind of appreciated that. And I loved that all the women were wearing these really cool stiletto shoes, except you just wouldn't see that in Paris because everywhere is cobblestone streets and you would frickin' break your ankle if you walked around in those. Women in Paris wear sneakers. The chic all black outfit with a pair of sneakers is very Parisian. Like, if you drop through the city and you walk around the main streets of Paris, you're gonna see a lot of sneakers with some very designer outfits. And you know what? They make it work. Either that or they're wearing a chunky high heel or a chunky boot so that they have a bit more stability on cobblestone streets. So let's forget Emily wandering around the city in skyscraper stilettos. Not happening. Secondly, Ubers are insanely expensive, as are taxis in Paris. I once went to a very cool club, which is on a boat on the Seine, and it was only 2 arrondissements away from my apartment, right? Actually, in kilometers, it was 2 kilometers, so I could have walked home, but it's Paris at midnight. I was by myself. I wasn't with Val. He was, I think, working that night. I'm pretty sure he was working. So I wandered to the train station. It was closed, as it often bizarrely is in the middle of the night in Paris. It's a city where no one goes out until like 10 o'clock and they stay out all night. However, the train does not run at nighttime. Go figure. So I had to catch a taxi. I had absolutely no choice. It was either stay in the city by myself until the train started at 6 o'clock in the morning or catch a taxi. The 2 kilometers home cost me 55 euros. That is almost 100 Australian dollars. So no, it is not realistic that Emily would be taking the Uber everywhere. Paris is famous for its metro. Everyone catches the metro. It's convenient. They come every 2 minutes. They go all over the city. And also, it's kind of part of the Paris experience. I really don't understand why Emily doesn't catch the metro. It's kind of weird, to be honest. And for me, a show about Paris and the experience of being an expat in Paris, not including the metro and like the extremely smelly metro hallways and tunnels you have to go through that stink. Like there's the scene where the guy is peeing in a urinal in Paris. I know they do have those urinals, but I never actually like spotted one. They're not hugely obvious. It's way more common for someone to just be peeing in the metro. That would have been a more realistic Parisian experience as far as public urination goes. So I'm gonna leave it there, guys. I already said how much I disliked the show. I just didn't have much respect for it. I just thought overall the show was incredibly insensitive and insulting to the French culture. Maybe I would have been more understanding about having a very cliche or stereotypical idea of France if they had just kind of filmed on a backlot at Warner Brothers Studios or whatever, but they didn't. They came to Paris and they used French actors and they submerged themselves in Paris to make this show, and then they obviously didn't learn anything about Paris and they didn't teach the viewers anything about Paris. Like, why? And one thing that I didn't touch on, that Emily's colleagues, that people at restaurants, that her friends, like when she's in a group setting, that her friends' family spoke English around her, just no. I'm sorry, no, not gonna happen. Like I get that they don't want to use subtitles and stuff, but I think it might have even made the experience more real if there weren't subtitles, if people were just speaking French around Emily and we and she experienced what it was like to not understand, because that is a very expat experience, particularly if you move and you have no French background whatsoever, you've never learnt the language. It is really alienating, and they could have actually done that in the show. So I was a bit disappointed by that. Why make a show about living in a foreign city and then like not want to put people off for that factor? Like it doesn't really make any sense. But okay, so yes, not a fan. I think it pretty poorly represented the experience of Paris, bar those few small things that they had correct that I mentioned. But in general, like honestly, the experience of moving to France is a really special one. The biggest thing I would say is learn some basic phrases. People will speak English to you. As I said, it can be quite hard to learn French in Paris because everyone wants to speak English to you, but make the effort to at least learn to say bonjour, au revoir, or au revoir. Je parle pas bien français. I don't speak good French. Parlez-vous anglais? Do you speak English? Merci, thank you. Just learn those basic phrases. That's all you need to get by. Try, guys, try. Honestly, the cultural difference is one of the most exciting things about traveling to another country and learning the language. So I would highly recommend doing it, and don't be put off if you don't speak French. As I say, people will switch to English for you. Just learn those basic phrases so you're not being extremely rude. But as soon as someone sees that you're trying but can hear that you're not very good in French, they will switch to English. Anyway, guys, that is the video. I hope you liked it. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought of the video, and if you would like any more of this French content, I would be happy to make videos about how I moved to Paris on a budget, how I found it as an expat, my favorite French phrases, what I think you need to learn before you come here, like anything like that. Please let me know in the comments what you would like to see. I know I did ask some of you already over on Instagram, and I am working on those videos. Otherwise, come and follow me on Instagram. Check out my Patreon. It is linked down below for extra content, more tips and tricks and perks for different tiers, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.